Liam and I had been best friends since grade school. He was the kind of guy who lit up every room he walked into, always cracking jokes, always scheming up wild plans. So when Liam disappeared, it didn't just leave a void in my life. It ripped a hole straight through it. The last time I saw him was over a year ago. We'd been at our favorite dive bar, talking about life, work, and all the things we'd do once we finally made it. He was cracking jokes about how his boring office job was sucking the life out of him. A week later, he stopped answering my texts. At first, I thought he was just in one of his off-the-grid phases. He'd do that sometimes, disappear for a few days to clear his head. But when days turned into weeks, I knew something was wrong. His family filed a missing persons report, but the cops didn't have much to go on. No signs of foul play, no unusual bank activity. It was like he just evaporated. His coworkers didn't have any answers either. He'd left the office on a Friday like usual, and by Monday he was gone. Months passed, and life moved on, at least for everyone else. His parents seemed resigned to the idea that he was gone for good. Even his sister stopped calling me for updates. But I couldn't let it go. Liam wasn't the kind of person who'd just walk away from everything. He'd have told me if something was wrong. Then one day, out of nowhere, his sister reached out. She'd been cleaning out Liam's old apartment and found a laptop he used to keep hidden. "Maybe there's something in there," she said, handing it over. I didn't know it then, but that laptop would lead me down a rabbit hole I'd never escaped from. The laptop was ancient, dusty, and held together with duct tape. When I booted it up, I was met with a password screen. I tried all the obvious guesses: his birthday, his dog's name, even some inside jokes we used to share. Nothing worked. Took me weeks to crack it. I ended up using a tutorial on how to bypass basic security measures. When I finally got in, the desktop was nearly empty, just a few folders and a text document. At first glance, it didn't seem like much, but one folder buried deep in the file structure caught my eye. It was labeled Sanctuary. Inside were dozens of links, all a string of random characters ending in .onion. I didn't know much about the dark web, but I knew enough to recognize what I was looking at. These were sites you couldn't access through a normal browser. I found myself staring at the screen, torn between curiosity and dread. I debated whether to even open one of the links, but the thought of Liam, where he might be, what he might have been involved in, pushed me forward. I downloaded the Tor browser and clicked the first link. What I saw made my stomach churn. It was a dark web forum, a place where anonymity reigned and morality was non-existent. The topics ranged from conspiracy theories to illegal activities I couldn't even bring myself to read about. But as I explored further, I found something even darker. A section dedicated to missing persons. The missing person section was exactly what it sounded like. Photos of people, young, old, men, women, all listed with chilling captions like healthy, obedient, perfect for domestic service, or prime organ donor material. I kept scrolling, my hands trembling. Then I saw it. Liam's photo stared back at me from the screen. It was blurry and poorly lit, but there was no mistaking it. The scar above his left eyebrow, the slightly crooked smile. I knew it was him. The caption read, "Male, intelligent, strong build, starting bid." I froze, my chest tightened as I reread the description, hoping I was wrong. But it was Liam, the friend I'd laughed with, argued with, grown up with. Now he was reduced to a commodity, something to be sold to the highest bidder. The first thing I did was call the police. I showed them the laptop, the dark web links, and Liam's listing, but they barely took me seriously. "The dark web is full of hoaxes," one of the officers said. "It's probably some sick prank." When I pressed them, they promised to look into it, but their tone made it clear they didn't believe me. They thought I was some paranoid friend clinging to false hope. Even Liam's family didn't believe me. His sister was polite but dismissive, and his parents didn't even return my calls. I was on my own. Desperation clawed at me. I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. If no one else was going to save Liam, I had to do it myself. I spent hours researching how to navigate the dark web safely. I created fake accounts, used a VPN, and read every guide I could find. But I knew I couldn't do it alone. That's when I found Shadow Seeker. Shadow Seeker was a user on one of the forums. notorious for helping people find information for a price. I messaged them, explaining my situation. They didn't respond for days, and I thought I'd been ghosted. But then, late one night, a single reply appeared. "What are you offering?" I didn't have much. I wasn't rich or connected, but I offered everything I could. Money, favors, whatever it took. Eventually, they agreed. Shadow Seeker wasn't cheap. I had to convert all my savings into Bitcoin just to keep them interested, but in return, they gave me access to Sanctuary, a forum so exclusive it required an invite to join. The first thing that struck me about Sanctuary was how organized it was. It wasn't the chaotic mess I'd imagined the dark web to be. Instead, it was sleek, professional, like some twisted version of Craigslist. The missing persons exchange had its own section with filters for age, gender, and even condition. I felt sick as I browsed through the listings. Liam's profile was still there, but now it had a countdown timer. The auction was set to go live in 4 days. I knew I didn't have much time. I sat in the dark, the only light coming from the auction site still open on my screen. Liam's face stared back at me, frozen in that haunting photo. Every instinct screamed at me to shut it all down and pretend I never saw it. But that wasn't an option, not anymore. I scrolled down, my hands trembling. The auction details were sparse. Subject, male, physically healthy, no major illnesses, spirited. Spirited, like he was a goddamn horse or a collector's item. Bile rose in my throat, but I forced myself to keep reading. The bids were in the tens of thousands, numbers rising steadily from anonymous accounts. "Liam, what the hell have you gotten into?" I whispered. I needed answers, and the only way to get them was to dig deeper into this vile rabbit hole. But doing that meant walking into a world where people like Liam were nothing more than merchandise, and I didn't know if I'd come out the other side unscathed. The auction site wasn't the only feature. There was also a chat room, its title, Buyers and Sellers Only. Clicking on it felt like opening Pandora's box. The room was filled with conversations, each message more chilling than the last. Subject looks like a fun one. Any details on prior experience? When is the transport happening? Need discretion as usual. Got any more young ones? Looking for something under 20. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles went white. These weren't people. They were predators, monsters parading as humans. My heart nearly stopped when I saw a user named Auction Master type into the chat. Reminder: payment clears by midnight, no exceptions. Subject goes live tomorrow. Good luck. Bids tomorrow. Liam had less than 24 hours before he was sold to God knows who. I jumped into the chat, typing furiously, "Who is Subject? Where is he being kept? How do I get him out?" The response came almost instantly. "Who invited the Boy Scout?" A wave of laughter-filled messages followed, mocking me. Another one of those heroes, they never last long. "Good luck, buddy. You'll need it." And then came a direct message from Auction Master. It was brief but chilling. "Pick your nose in where it doesn't belong and you'll be next." I slammed my laptop shut, my heart pounding like a drum. For a moment, I considered stopping there, turning it all off, pretending I hadn't seen anything. But Liam's face kept flashing in my mind. That hollow look, the bruises. He wouldn't give up on me, and I couldn't give up on him.